We all know a Humvee isn't fast, but without a working speedometer, you don't even know how slow you're going. Today's project is to diagnose and repair what's wrong with this speedometer. So here under the truck, I can see the ratio adapter, which is a right angle gearbox that goes into the speedometer adapter. Let's start taking this apart and find out why the speedometer doesn't work. The first thing I'm going to do is disconnect the ratio adapter gearbox from the transfer case. And this is coming off way easy. Doesn't seem like it was really threaded on. To remove the speedometer adapter, there's a little clamp, kind of like a distributor hold down clamp. You can use a 9/16 wrench to break this free, and then the bolt just unthreads. The clamp falls off, so I'll carefully put a screwdriver into this little recess. It'll help me work that out. So there's an O-ring in there. There we go. Next will be to pull the adapter out. And then there's a gear in there too. Here we go. So the gear looks good. Yeah, there's the thread. All eaten up from being cross-threaded. Can't get a wrench in there really easily to get the ratio adapter or that right angled gearbox out. I can feed it forward over the transfer case and now have it in a spot where I can easily take it apart off the speedometer cable. With everything on the workbench, let's take a look at why this all broke and why the speedometer didn't work. The big cause is that the ratio adapter being cross-threaded by quite an angle there was no way this pin was going to live. That it went in there, it might have gone a couple times, but it was just subjected to bending and flexing, and this pin broke. The pin's an easy fix. The pin, you can actually order separately. So while the pin's $15, the ratio adapter, best I've found, is somewhere like $280. Next comes fixing this. If I could fix it by rethreading it, I probably would, but these threads are so mangled that it doesn't really look like it. Plus, there's supposed to be a seal inside here and a little snap ring to hold it in place, and that's missing. This part's currently on back order from AM General. Part number is 12339963. If you order that, you just get the aluminum. You don't get the O-ring, you don't get the internal seal, you don't get the snap ring. AM General part number, there was another part number. It's a Mopar Chrysler part. It fits Chrysler transmissions from 1966 onward and was used all the way up into Jeeps and everything else. So I'll give you the link and part number for this thing, but it's exactly the same. And it comes with the seal, the snap ring, everything ready to go, even the O-ring. And I paid $50 including shipping. With this, the gear will install right in. And then the new pin goes in the adapter and it's held in by a snap ring, and then these just thread together like so. Now the cable's another story. So I can feel the cable and it does have like a hard spot in it, but I'm going to try to turn it. I'm just going to do that with a hook it up to the drill. There might be a kink in the cable because of how it's rocking around, but I'm going to see if it's actually turning the speedometer. With that test done, take the dash out and pull the speedometer out. See if I have a bad cable or if I have a bad gauge. The wrench needed for the speedometer cable is 3/4 of an inch. I've got the broken piece of the ratio adapter in the drill. And I'm going to put the speedometer on it, and let's see what happens. So I'm able to get a non-swinging needle and everything else. So I think the speedometer itself is good. So now I've narrowed it down to bad cable too. So without even kind of trying, I pulled the core out of the speedometer cable. It comes out from this end, not from underneath the truck. And the one thing I noticed is that it's got a pretty good bend right here at the end. Here's the cable, and yeah, I can feel it right there. with a coating of automatic transmission fluid on the speedometer adapter. I'm going to reach up and put it into place. So with it in place, I can use the clamp, kind of like a wrench, to turn it until I get the gear engagement I need. So yeah, that's 32, 38 right there on the bottom, and then the clamp will go there. On the bolt, of course, just a tiny amount of anti-seize, because this is going right into the aluminum, and I don't want it to become part of the aluminum. After fighting with this for about an hour and a half to try to straighten the old cable, it just wasn't worth it, and I bought a new cable. And no matter what I did, I couldn't make this shake in the speedometer go away. So now I've got it connected back to the ratio adapter, and I'm going to install the ratio adapter onto the speedometer drive on the transfer case. The part number of the new cable is 12338428-2. There it is right there. And it's 116 inches long. It's pretty crazy how big that cable is compared to what it was on like the M998 truck, where it was only about 85 inches. So this is going to go into here. And I'm going to be super careful not to cross-thread it, because we know what that looks like. I'll say this, that even though this cable is the same part number, the end fittings are different. So on the speedometer side, it has the round knurled fitting, not the hex like the original cable had. And then on this side, as best I can tell, the hex on the speedometer cable is not a 1 inch. So it's something different. It might be metric, but a 1 inch wrench does not fit on it. And that's what I use to take everything apart. Even though this is a 1 inch wrench, we're not putting bridge bolts in, it's just holding the speedometer. So I'm not going to go too crazy tightening this up. But I'm going to adjust the angle of this to try to minimize the bend at the cable end. That's what it looks like all back in place. Now there's some P-clamps that need to go on. So one of the P-clamps installs here, and then it's just a little lock nut on the back, and then a 5/16 nut driver to tighten it down. Once the lock nut grabs, it'll pretty much hold it. It doesn't have to be held with a wrench. With putting the instrument cluster back in place, one thing is to make sure that the speedometer cable has a place to go. And if need be, get out and actually pull the cable to help get the instrument cluster more rearward. One of the things that didn't help my speedometer cable as I received it was that they just crammed this thing back in there any which way, and it put a pretty nasty kink in the cable right behind the speedometer. That kink caused the outer jacket to wear, which made the cable drag. The inner cable actually is a spring, so every time it would go past that rough patch, it would build up energy and then spring past it, which would surge the needle upward. And it would slow down and speed up, slow down, speed up, and that's why the needle swings. The next cable clamp goes up here by the brake fluid master cylinder, and it ties the 2 hydraulic lines to the speedometer cable. Kind of keeps it from flopping around and hitting the generator.